Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our course Music Theory 1. All the lessons for this course are free on our YouTube channel, so you can follow right along with the playlist, or you can look in the description below for links to the rest of the lessons. To accelerate your learning though, I highly recommend that you download the corresponding workbook and e-guide. To learn more about the workbook and e-guide, click the link on the screen or look in the description below. Welcome to Music Theory 1, Lesson 7. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about intervals. So now you have a basic understanding of the main elements of music, which were melody, harmony, and rhythm. It's time to take a step back and get into the more nitty-gritty of things and get more into the building blocks of all of music theory, where we kind of started with the musical alphabet. Now we're going to jump into another really important building block, which is intervals. And all an interval is a distance between any two notes. So if I play one note and then play another note, the distance between those two notes is an interval. It doesn't matter what note I'm playing, it doesn't matter the name of that note as far as the letter name, we're only talking about the distance between the notes. And as you'll remember, I said that Western music is made up of 12 notes. There's only 12 notes in Western music, which is A through G, and then you have sharps and flats in between all of those notes except B and C or E and F. Other music in other parts of the world actually has notes in between Western music's notes. If you think of like different Middle Eastern type music or other types of music, there's notes that fall in between our notes, but in Western music, there's only 12 notes. So that means once you hit G sharp, if you start on A, once you hit G sharp or A flat, it just starts back over at A, and then everything is just a repeat of those notes in different octaves. But the letter names are the same. There's no notes other than A through G. So if I was to play the chromatic scale, A chromatic scale on the 6th string, those are all the notes in Western music, but they can be in different pitches with different octaves like we talked about. So now to talk about intervals, I'm just going to move a chromatic scale down to the lowest fret that I have on the 6th string, and that's just to give me some room. It doesn't matter where I did this on the guitar, intervals stay the same because intervals are just relative to two separate notes. They have nothing to do with where on the guitar you are or what the actual letter names are. So note names, for example, this is an F, don't affect the actual interval names at all. So don't worry about note names right now. So if I was to start on this note and I was to move up half a step to this note, like I mentioned before, that's the smallest distance we have in Western music, which is a half step. So this is the smallest interval that we have. Half steps are the smallest interval that you have in Western music. Unless on a guitar you're bending your strings, you can bend in between those pitches and actually hear different pitches. But when you're talking about actual note names that we have in Western music, half step is your smallest distance. And it doesn't matter where that lands on the guitar, from here to here is a half step, but from here to here is a half step, from here to here is a half step, and vice versa, from here to here is a half step. Anywhere on the guitar where two notes are a fret apart, which is easiest to see when you're talking about one string, that's the smallest distance you have in Western music, which is a half step, which means it's the smallest interval that you have. And it's called a minor second, but we're not worried about the actual names right now. We'll talk about the interval names in a later lesson. And the biggest interval we'll worry about for now is an octave. So from this note to this note is an octave. So an octave is actually an interval name. You have intervals that are higher than octaves, but we're not going to worry about that for now. For now, all you need to worry about are the intervals that fall from an octave or in between. So for now, this is the biggest interval distance that we'll worry about, no matter where you saw that on the guitar. I'm just showing you in a random location for now. So for now, just know that the smallest interval distance you have is a half step, and the biggest interval distance that we'll worry about for now is 12 half steps, or 6 whole steps. So it doesn't matter what note I start on or what note I go to. I'll just start on this note so that I have room. From here to here is an interval distance. From here to here, a whole step apart is an interval distance. From here to any other random note is an interval distance. And it just means that the distance between this note and any other note is represented by what's called an interval. And it's really easy to visualize on one string, just like a piano is really easy to visualize because it's horizontal. But like I said in the other lesson, it can be difficult to visualize when you're on multiple strings. So for example, if I started on this note and went to this note, that's an interval distance. It's called a major third, but don't worry about the name for right now. That could actually be represented on two separate strings. So from here to here is a major third as well, and that's because a note right here is a unison to this note. So it can be confusing when you're looking at intervals moving vertically, and those become what are called interval shapes, but we'll deal with that in a later lesson. For now, all you need to realize, and all this lesson is about, is what intervals are. And intervals are just the distance between two notes, which is a crucial building block in understanding music. And in the next lesson, you'll really start to learn specifically why intervals are important and how they're the building blocks of music. But again, for right now, just realize that an interval is the distance between two notes, any two notes. It doesn't matter what two notes they are. And it doesn't matter where they land on your fretboard, and it doesn't matter the name of the notes, the letter names. Intervals have their own names, which represent the distance between the notes. So that's an explanation of intervals. In the next lesson, I'm going to talk about scales. Look in the Music Theory 1 workbook for step-by-step guidance on how to retain this information and what to do next. And remember, all the charts and diagrams are in the Music Theory 1 e-guide for you to reference anytime.